Hi again. Now we're going to apply what we have been learning, and I'm going to use a case that was very, very interesting. And the case is the Heart of Atlanta Motel versus the United States. Again, who's the plaintiff over here? Heart of Atlanta Motel. Who is the defendant? The United States, which is very interesting because this case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And I'm sure that while I'm talking, you're reading about the case now, but this was very interesting because it was a local restaurant or motel that was violating the civil rights of 1964. And this case was in 1964, so this was really one of the first cases where the Civil Rights Act was applicable to the dispute that was going on there. And of course, the owners of the motel did not want to rent the rooms in this motel to African Americans. And they felt that this is a local motel and it's a intrastate issue, and therefore the federal government, which at that time was the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we didn't have yet a state discriminatory act. So they felt, being that it's a local issue, the federal statute, the federal Congress does not have any authority or jurisdiction to tell us that we have to rent room to the African Americans. Very, very interesting. And of course, the owner argued that his motel was not engaged in interstate commerce because if you remember a few slides before, I mentioned to you the only reason or the only way that our federal government can interfere with the state is when whatever the state is doing or whatever state law they have or whatever behavior somebody in the state is doing is interfering with commerce. And this was very interesting because the motel was insisting, hey, don't tell me what to do, Civil Rights Act. I can refuse to rent it because I'm local. I'm here in the state of Georgia, and that's all there is to it. There's no commerce. Therefore, the federal government cannot tell me what to do. And in the meantime, the two people, the plaintiff, the defendant, they went to court because they said they're violating a new law in 1964. And one of the things that they were looking into this whole situation is, well, let's see, does this local motel really interferes with commerce? And of course, they went into and find out that at least 75% of the guests were residents of other states. Just because 75%, whereas that interfered with commerce. And so what they did is that they want to make sure then that because of that, they had the authority to tell this local motel that by them refusing to or discriminating against, they were violating the Civil Rights Act. And of course, one of the questions is, did Congress exceed its constitutional power to regulate interstate commerce by enacting the Civil Rights Act of 1964? And many people are questioning to this day that the Civil Rights of 1964, when Congress wrote that, it was really to regulate what? Was it constitutional? Was it to regulate interstate commerce so that then people in their own state had to accept having neighbors or having renting or restaurant or cooking hamburgers or whatever you want to do it to different kind of people and not just people of their own state. And now remember, you still have the Constitution that tells you what? You're free. You are free to have people come over your restaurant that you own, that who you want to, just like in your own house. You know, you want people that you like to have over your house. You don't, certain friends that you don't like, you don't invite them over the house. And in a way, the owner of restaurant felt that he had the same right under the Constitution. He only could serve the people that he wanted to be served locally. That's what they wanted to live in that state. And this particular situation was Georgia. And as you know, the South was not too happy about having the Civil Rights Act. But in the meantime, and now the question that I'm asking, suppose that only 5% of the motel guests, or even 2% or 1%, in that situation, would the court still have been justified in regulating the motel activity? And the answer really is yes. The United States Supreme Court upheld the Constitution of the Civil Rights Act. And then I want you to know that they were saying, the court noted that the Civil Rights Act was passed to correct was passed to correct the privation of personal dignity. Here we going. They're going into what? Values. Not so much commerce, not so much of a commerce of trade activity, but there is something like here, some people, the Africans, the black Africans, Americans, they were offended. So that was not nice. Here is a beginning of enforcing some values that as a society, what kind of society are we that we do that? You know, if we see somebody that we don't like, we say, I'm sorry, go to some place because I'm not going to give you food. This is not exactly the value of our society. This is why later on we're going to study about the Good Samaritan statue. Why we call it Good Samaritan? Because even if we are not of the same race, if we see someone hurt on the road, we are encouraged by that statue to help the person, even if the person is not like me or like you. And of course, the Congress testimony leading to passage that indicated that African Americans in particular, they experienced substantial discrimination in attempting securing lodging. And this is 1964. I mean, we know then that says, hey, there was a habit, there was a tradition of behavior where black people were treated different from white people. So the Civil Rights Act was going to stop all that. And in a way, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it was to stop and something that it was not moral, that it was not ethical. The discrimination then was impeding interstate travel, because then if you discriminate against certain people, then you are interfering with the commerce, because then what happens? The African American will not be able to go to that state. That means it's interfering with commerce, because next thing you know, they're not free to go wherever they want to. So, and of course the owner argument, it goes, no, this is a purely local character. We in this state, we don't like certain people to come in our state, and we have the right to, you know, set up borders if you want to, or walls. And of course the court says, no, you cannot do that. And this is where I thought it was interesting. Therefore, under the Commerce Clause, Congress had the power to regulate. And today, under the Commerce Clause, Congress, the federal court, has the power to regulate any local activity that has a harmful effect of interstate commerce. And today, with the internet, the only thing that yet the federal government is not regulate is baseball activity. But anything else, if you think about it, even if you're a local little small deli and you're buying salami from Pennsylvania, or you're buying a provolone cheese from New York, and then you're refusing to serve or selling to someone, or you're refusing to hire somebody because they are not from your state, or because of color, because of race, you are interfering with commerce. So the federal government does control, because of commerce, almost everything we do today. And you have to remember that when the Constitution was written, we didn't have all the different tools of transportation. Horse and carriage, and then the railroad, and then the planes and the ships, you know. And this is why today the federal government and the Commerce Clause regulates all kinds of local activities, especially business local activities. Case question then, does the Civil Rights Act of 1964 actually regulate commerce, or was it designed to end the practice of race discrimination? Well, what does it do it? The Supreme Court in that case said that Congress was legislating against moral wrongs. This was the opinion of the judges. Render it enactment no less valid. So what they're saying really, what was the intent of the Congress to write in the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Was it really because they wanted to regulate commerce? And the court used the Commerce Clause to what? The key for the people to go to court, to be protected. But then what really was the intent of the Civil Rights Act? Was it really to regulate commerce, or was it really to regulate some wrongdoing that we were doing as a society? And of course, Congress legislating, what the court says, Congress' intent was to against a moral wrong. So I want you to see now how values of the society becomes laws. And we're going to discuss this more again with the reading assignment. And thank you.